everyone. Welcome to the main thing. My guest today is Cait Mack. Thanks for taking the time to be here, Cait.
Thank you, Noah. I appreciate it.
So I figured we'd start with your pinned tweet you have on Twitter because I think it's going to be a good launching point for us in our conversation. So I'm just going to pull it up here real quick. But one of the things that I think is really cool about what I was looking through on your story is that you said, at 25, you had one lousy 11-hour job. And at 35, you now have five income streams, living your best life. And I was just curious about one, what was that job that you had at 25? And then how you discovered these additional five income streams and kind of what that path looked like.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a silly little warehouse job. The only benefit to it was that you got out at 2 in the afternoon, but that's because you had to start your day at like 5:30 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's kind of where I was at. I was drinking too much. I was living on a futon in my parents' house. Like it was a terrible situation, and just sort of got sick of it. Um, I actually went and got a temp job at a company. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just making some outbound calls for them to try to get people to come to their shows. Uh, and I did pretty well at it. So, kind of what they did was they asked me if I want to start learning about sales. And I said, yes. Um, and so then it sort of took off from there. I want to credit, that company with helping, build me into a salesperson, basically. And for anyone who's on the fence about jobs or careers, sales is great because it allows you to really, once you get into commissions and stuff, you can start growing your salary really as high as if you're bringing in the revenue, they're going to pay you. Um, so that's sort of where it started. And then that was the first job where I was putting money into a 401k, which got me into investing, right? I started seeing my 401k grow and I became interested. So my first thing then was I went and opened my own stock account, right? So I started buying some dividend stocks, ETFs, um, things like that, which is really where my first or my second income stream, came from.
Mm-hmm.
Then one of the smartest things I did in my 20s, bought a fixer upper,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a 3-bedroom colonial, and I lined up two friends as roommates. Had my dad help me fix the house up, so immediate appreciation, right? And because I got a great deal. And then you fix it up, and I realized my friends are paying the mortgage. Their rent is covering the mortgage plus like my third of the utilities.
Right.
So all of a sudden I'm living for free again. And when I was living with my parents for free, I started around 25 being smart, right? Like saving pretty much all of my salary.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped going out and drinking and doing all the stupid stuff, and I was just saving money. That's what helped me, buy that house at 27. So then I'm living again for free. And then 5 years later, I sold it, and it was for a nice profit, right? And so then, we went and I ended up buying in the course of a year 2 rental properties.
Okay.
So my brother manages them for me because I really don't like dealing with
The
the
tenants.
landlord, all that. People are surprised to find out because I'm in sales and I do this kind of stuff. I'm an introvert. I really don't, like want to get out there in front of everybody. So, you know, rental properties, right? Cash flow, appreciation, tax advantages, a ton of good things. If you can find ways to house hack, like that, where, I was living with the
Right.
roommates and, that's going to be great. It's the kind of stuff that builds your net worth very quickly. Um, and then So you kind of go from there. And then I was on Medium and Twitter, joined both of them kind of in 2014. And I was pretty active at first, but then I was really focused on the real estate stuff, the sales, like building my career, doing a lot of training for that, going back to school. Um, so, sort of fell off of being online in a public fashion. And I want to say it was like a few months into the pandemic that I came back to Medium and got really serious. Like, hey, I have some stories to tell, and
Mm.
some things to say that can hopefully help other
Right.
people. And then same thing with Twitter. Showed up at the end of 2021 and just decided to re-engage.
Hmm. Cool. Uh, And going back, I loved how you laid that out all for us. Going back to the sales, I have a question about that because was there any training that that company did for you, or were you all self taught about how you went about your sales strategy?
So both. Um,
Hmm.
I actually still work for this company.
Oh
Just
wow.
I've
Okay,
moved through a few platform, but yeah, I've been there for like now like 11, going on 11 years.
that's
So
amazing.
I've moved through a few roles, but I've stayed, pretty much in that sales type of thing. But they actually have something called ASI University. It's like an
Hmm.
in-house university where they teach a bunch of things, but sales would be one of them. Um, and then I just have, and I've always been like, I've been a big reader my whole
Hmm.
life. So if I can get my hands on a sales book, if I can watch YouTube videos on it, like I'm doing that too.
Right.
I've actually helped host some trainings at the company because of, learning some of this other stuff.
Right. Are there any specific sales books that you've come across that you recommend?
So I actually just bought one that I have to
Hmm.
recommend to people. It's expensive, but it's Grant Cardone's The Playbook to Millions.
Mm.
I'm
I
actually
just
going
saw
to
you
write.
tweet
Go
about this,
ahead.
I think.
Yes. Yes. So I ran through it quickly, after the
Okay.
first couple of days that I got it. Going to go back in more depth, but yeah, I mean, he's got like 200 pages of sales strategies and tips, and this is after like 200 pages of personal finance. I
Right.
was like, a book that blends like my two favorite things. So
Yeah.
covers
Yeah.
everything.
That are we gonna get some Medium articles on that book, you think?
I think definitely some Twitter threads and Medium articles. And
Okay.
one of the big reasons I wanted to share some of the stuff is it's an expensive book, right?
Hmm.
$70. If you buy it from his website, it's 200.
Mm.
And so for some people, maybe this is out of the price range.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I'll try to get
No,
some of this
that's
out there for free.
yeah, that's awesome that you're doing that. And then transitioning to a little bit of the real estate stuff where you bought your first house, had roommates in it. My last guest, Matt Boutte, who I had on, who's from my hometown, and he just bought his first fourplex in Chicago. And it was
Nice.
cool to hear about, that sort of thing where you're living for free, essentially, right?
Yeah.
What about that like is the thing that you love the most? Is it the ability to kind of be financially free, or are there other things that you enjoy about being or have living for free essentially?
So, I mean, I think for me, it was building the financial freedom, right? Like it
Right.
allowed me again, like I said, to save a good like 60-70% of my income, right?
Mm-hmm.
Reinvested into other things, into the stock, into some crypto. Um, I have a Fundrise account as well, which some people find funny because I'm in the real estate, locally. But Fundrise is a platform where you can invest in private real estate deals nationwide.
Mm.
So I've actually rolled money into there as well, just because I mean I'm not going to go buying properties in Texas and California, and just I live in
Right.
Philadelphia. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that gives me exposure, kind of nationwide. But yeah, so this allowed me, when I'm living for free, I'm not fancy, there's nothing that I like. I don't run around. I don't even travel that much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so this was just investing, and it's like the goal now is, within the next 10 years, we're talking financial freedom, work optional. And I say, like, you can't beat that. Once you get that idea in your head, it becomes like this obsessive,
Right.
and that sort of was where that was at.
And this Fundrise is the platform that you mentioned. Does it work like you essentially open almost like a brokerage account and then you can deposit funds into it and they diversify it across the United States with real
Yes,
estate?
you can actually open with as little as like $10.
Oh
Um,
wow.
I opened up a $5,000 account. It was like a core account, I think it was called, or a core plan. I did what they call balanced investing. And
Hmm.
that's where they pay out dividends quarterly and also, the appreciation. They do say up front it's like a 5+ year commitment, which was fine by me. I
Hmm.
think real estate is a long-term commitment period, whether you're doing it local or on a national level. Um, but yeah, I mean, no downsides. They're very upfront about their fees. You see, like you log in and there's a chart right there that tells you, your appreciation, your dividends, your fees.
Hmm.
So everything is, very transparent. You know what you're
Yeah.
getting into, you know what's there.
I'm definitely going to check that out because that's a an investment that I want to get into, more of. And I think more
Absolutely.
people my age should.
Yes. And with
Yeah.
it, how expensive real estate is getting, I say
Mhm.
even more like this is a decent option for people who don't necessarily have the capital to jump into this game with
Right.
all these
Yeah.
investors out there who have cash on hand, hundreds of thousands.
Sure. Okay. And going back, I think we're going to backtrack a little bit, and I want to paint the picture a little bit for how you and I got connected initially. And I believe it was through a Facebook group, right? One that you're a part of, and I saw you on Medium.
Mhm.
And I believe the thread or the series that you do that caught my eye the most was Books and Booze, or Booze and Books.
Mhm.
um,
Absolutely.
and I loved it. I Every Sunday, I believe you post it, right?
Mhm.
And that was one of the first things that I saw on this Facebook group. And I have an initial question about Facebook groups. Did you or do you think that the ROI is high on Facebook groups for medium writers and whatnot?
So, yes, um, I personally don't do the follow for follow that I know is
A lot
popular
of
on a
people
lot of them.
do. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
there's a lot of spammy type stuff. I
Hmm.
go in, I post my article. If I see somebody asking questions, I try to answer it.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't do read for read or follow for follow. If
Right.
I see something that catches my eye, I'm going to read it
Hmm.
100%. If I see someone that I like, I'm following. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that part is kind of nah,
Yeah. It's kind
like
of
the follow for follow, read for read. But other than
is
that, yes, I do think there's benefit there.
right. And you're at a little under 5,000 followers on Medium now. And do you think that Facebook group helped build that following, or are there specific things that helped you build a following on Medium?
So I do think that it helps
Hmm.
in that sense. I think when you post, you do get a handful of reads and followers, and for me, I think the biggest thing I noticed the growth come when I really committed to being consistent on there. Obviously, quality, right? Like I don't want to write
Hmm.
something that's a junky article, but then it became quantity as well. I thought quantity was just as important.
Hmm.
When I initially came back right after the pandemic, it was three times a week I published. Then it was four
Hmm.
times, and then I want to say like 10 months ago or so, I committed to publishing daily,
Hmm.
and I really saw a lot of uptick in followers when there was this daily because then you're kind of always in front of people.
Right. When you were publishing daily, and maybe we can loop back to the
Mhm.
start, were you submitting to publications, or were you self-publishing most of your articles?
Yeah, so I actually self-publish pretty much everything. I don't submit a ton to publications. I probably should. So I
Hmm.
don't want people to think like, "Oh, I'm not going to do that either," because I think there's a lot of value and I think people should. I think I should more.
Hmm.
Um, but for me it was more that commitment of I'm going to write something every single day
Right.
uh,
Right.
and publish and I need to look more into publications though.
Well, I think, there's a threshold there, because for a lot of these publications, it takes a couple days for them to review them. And for
Mhm.
someone like you who's trying to post every day, that may not be the most feasible avenue to push your content out there. Whereas someone like me as a medium writer, I'm publishing twice a week just because I'm like full-time student in school. I got my business, and I really want to make sure that everything that I put out there is like really good and something that I spend a lot of time on. And that's not to say that you obviously are not spending a lot of time of it, just a different perspective. And but like for me, it's like I can submit something on Tuesday and Friday, and I know like 3 days later it's going to get published, which that to me, because it's getting published to a bigger audience than what I'm currently at, is something that I find a lot of value in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tend to agree if you are, kind of starting out or you're looking for that larger audience, definitely, go to publications. Obviously, most of the successful writer, right? Your Tim Dennings,
Hmm.
uh, Jari Rumor. If I don't know
Hmm.
if you're familiar with him. These guys are putting stuff in publications.
Right. And so when you started posting, did you post your first Medium article in 2021?
No, so I actually posted I mean, I joined Medium back in 2014 and
Oh,
posted
wow.
my
Okay.
first thing and had a handful of articles back then. But then, a lot like you, right? Like I went back to school, I was building my
Mm.
career. This
Hmm.
stuff got pushed to the side. Like, okay, I don't have time to sit there and, you know, write even twice a week.
Right. Right. Okay. And then of those articles that you published in 2014, are there any that are still, getting read or still making you money, and or are they
I
all just
deleted them. They were awful. They made me
all
cringe when I came back in 2020.
Okay, so then fast forwarding to 2020, um, kind of the way Medium's algorithm works is that you get paid based on the amount of time someone spends on your article, right? The read through. Um, have you found Medium to be a good, income stream, like a substantial one?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Medium is providing me at least a few $100s a month.
Hmm.
It can be higher. It can be into, even a couple thousand. There's obviously people that are making a ton of money on there, right? 5,000,
Hmm.
10,000 a month. Somebody said the other day, Tim Denning is making 50,000 a month on there. I don't know if that's true. It's kind of crazy
That
if it is,
that would be insane.
but it's become a decent income stream. But like for me, it really is like less about that. It's that I
Right.
want to keep practicing that content creation, right? And that
Hmm.
habit of publishing and creating stuff more often than I'm just sitting around consuming things.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's like sort of where I'm at. Like, yes, the money's nice. Of course, we all like money that comes in.
Hmm.
It's not my primary, source of anything. So it's sort of like for me, like whatever comes in is nice. I don't, you've probably seen the other writers talking about it fluctuates. Some months are
Right.
really great, some months are and you don't know what you did different. I, I don't try
Yeah.
to figure out the algorithm and all that. I
You just
post
right.
and it's the process for me.
Right. And speaking a little bit about that process, maybe we
Hmm.
can unpack that a little bit. I don't write for the money either. I'm writing, like you said, to better myself, learn, because I think writing is one of the best ways to learn about something, right? What do you get out of writing, and what do you find joy in that process of it?
Yeah, so it's just like you said, right? So one, it's the gathering of the thoughts. Now I feel like I understand the topic even better than I did when I was learning it or even maybe doing it because now
Hmm.
I'm being very concise.
Right.
I don't know for anyone who reads my stuff, it's usually short, 2, 3 minutes. I try to get this the core idea
Hmm.
in, keep it short, move on. Um, so for me, that's one way to do it, right? Like
Right.
I cut a lot of the fat off of an
Hmm.
idea, so it helps me process it. And then the other thing is, it's so cliche, but when people say like if I can do it, anyone can. It's like I want to share my story because I think of where I was when I was 25, and it's like literally anyone can do what I've done and kind of turn your life around and get
Hmm.
to this good place. And if I can share some of the ways that I did that and still do it,
Yeah.
because that's like the one thing I love is like I'm always learning. I probably
Hmm.
read more on Medium than I write
Hmm.
because there's so many good articles and so many good authors, and so you feel like if you can add to that at all and help somebody, you're going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think what you just said is one of the most courageous things that you can do, period, because that takes a level of, humility. Obviously you have to be authentic in sharing your story and whatnot. So that's incredible.
Yeah.
Um, and transitioning a little bit to Twitter now, let's go and dive in there because there's a lot to unpack, I'm sure. Um, 2014, you joined Twitter.
Yes.
When did you start taking it as almost like a a job, where you're, being consistent with your threads and what you post on there?
So I was on there in 2014. It was another thing, I fell off of, I just was really not online a lot as I was
Hmm.
doing stuff, like I said, with real estate sales. Um, so kind of what happened there is around, I want to say like November. It was November of 21, so not that long ago. We're
Hmm.
talking like 5 months. I was talking to my girlfriend and I'm like, I just need to be like, I need to find a community of like people who were like really obsessed with like personal growth, money, not just money for money's sake, but like wealth building for financial freedom, all
Hmm.
this. And I was like, I'm going to go back to Twitter. I don't know where I saw it, but I saw someone talking about money Twitter. I said, I got to find these people, that are
Hmm.
like obsessed with all this stuff. So I decided to go back and sort of do what I did on Medium, right? Share little things that helped me and then engage with people that are like minds. That's
Hmm.
what I was searching for. Um, and I decided to commit to it for 30 days. I said, for the next 30 days, I'm going to go on here every day. I'm going to post stuff. I'm going to comment. I'm going to engage with people. And then obviously I've just carried it on, right? Like it's been an additional 4 months and I'm like, well, like now I'm just in it. I love being on Twitter. I can't believe all the free information you can come across. Like you've seen
Yeah.
some of the threads out there, I'm sure, like genius level people are just sharing, information that's life changing. And I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not
And
leaving Twitter anytime soon.
right, right. Yeah. Unpacking the share portion and the engage portion, was there specific things that you were sharing, or um, ways you were packaging your Twitter content that was more beneficial to building an audience on there?
So I realized that there was, I actually, there are some people who like to tweet a lot throughout the day. Um, Actually, Grant Cardone, whose book I mentioned, he talks about tweeting like 50 times a day. It's too much for me. I
Mm-hmm.
actually normally stick to 2 or 3 times. I try to find, again, like kind of as I was talking about my Medium articles, cutting the fat, right? Just like a core idea that stood out to me today, or I'll have a few like drafts, unsent tweets that I keep as I think of things. But I stick to that. It's just a couple of times a day, and then Twitter threads. I try to do those twice a week, and a lot of times what I'll do is repurpose stuff that I had on Medium and turn
Mm-hmm.
it into a Twitter thread. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Right.
Just and the other thing is probably I do want to talk about whatever I was talking about on Medium. I wrote that article for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So repackage it. I've seen some people on Twitter try to send links to Medium. I don't really like to do that. You kind of have to stick with what's for that platform.
Sure.
So that's why I say like repurpose. And
Right.
that's not a groundbreaking idea. Most people do that, but um, and then my other thing was to just engage. Like I like to try to hit. I just set a number for myself because it helps, right? I like to comment on 20 things a day. Like that's my goal, is to find 20 tweets and leave a comment. But my thing with it is it has to be what I would consider a comment of value.
Mm.
So it can't just be like awesome story.
Right.
That won't cut it. Like for me to count it as one of the 20, I have to have added something to this, given someone an idea or said something useful. And I actually do the same thing on Medium. And I did want to throw that in there. I think a mistake that some new writers make is not treating Medium like a social media platform for writers.
Mm.
And it is. You do want to go out there and comment and clap and engage with other writers. You don't just want to post your stuff and leave.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
you know that's not how you build on there.
Yeah. The article that I've gotten the most traction on was one that unfortunately I wasn't a part of the partner program yet. So I didn't earn on that, but that's totally okay. I learned a ton from it, and that's valuable. So, but while I was publishing that post, I was going around and commenting on just on the platform, not even going through Facebook groups or whatever. Because like you said, it can get a little spammy in there. and just authentically reading articles, commenting on them, leaving some comments of value. I love that term because that's what
Yes.
I'm trying to do on Twitter. And that I think really helped my Medium kind of kickstart and kind of get my
Yeah.
foot in the door on the platform. And yeah, I love that idea. Going back to Twitter,
Mhm.
did you experience, so in that 5 months dating back to 2021, you how many followers did you start with? Because you have 13,000 followers now.
I want to say I had a decent follower amount from
Okay.
back in 2014. I used to talk a lot of sales and marketing stuff with people.
Hmm.
And I was there for like 6 months, and you can actually get a pretty decent following in 6 months. So I want to say I came back with 6,000.
Okay.
So this is not a 0 to 12,000, whatever it is,
Right.
type of story, but a good amount of followers again in this like 5 month period. You're talking 6,000 again, um, and so I think that's what it is. But it's that commitment to consistency, right?
Right.
I don't think this would happen if I wasn't showing up every single day over the last 5 months.
Right. And well, I would say that, 6,000 followers in 5 months is incredible. Like that's a lot of work, and kudos to you for doing that. Other than the, sharing insightful posts, sharing stuff that you've curated and engaging on the platform, is there anything else that you believe that has helped grow your Twitter? Maybe, on Medium, linking your Twitter to it, or anything specific there?
So I definitely share, like cross share my
Hmm.
like at the end of every Medium article. I have like a join me on Twitter and Substack.
Hmm.
On Substack, I have a join me on.
Hmm.
My Twitter profile links to Substack and Medium, so there's always like the crossover. Um, I want to say the like to take the engagement part a step further, right? So like the comments of
Right.
value, but then sort of how we ended up here, right? The
Hmm.
message slid right into
Hmm.
your DMs. Hey,
Yeah.
no, love your content. And it's the same with the comment of value. I do the reach outs, in DMs, but I always come back. It has to be a genuine reach out, right? Like
Right.
I'm not just going to message some to message them. I have to actually feel like I enjoy your content. I look forward to what you're doing. Um,
Right.
and so I do that. And obviously you and I are here today. And then
We're here today because of it.
Jari Rumor, I
Hmm.
met with him on a Zoom call to discuss some of the stuff that he's working on, um, because of a DM on Twitter. So I love too the crossover from like finding the people on Medium and finding them on Twitter. 'Cause you
Mm.
can't really like DM on Medium. You're not going to have like that
Yeah.
one. I've actually even had a conversation with Tim Denning in the DMs of Twitter. Uh, so that kind of stuff, like engagement can go further, and if you move into the direct messaging, it just you never want it to feel like some people slide in and they're trying to sell me things. That's not like a
That's
way to
a no
engage
go.
with people. Yeah, so like it has to be a genuine thing. Like I actually enjoy your content.
Hmm.
I'd like to keep in touch with you, get to
Hmm.
but I do. I think that helps too because you will notice like once you start having these conversations with people in the DM, sometimes they'll be retweeting your things. Or I was invited on a Twitter Spaces by a couple of big accounts just from having short little exchanges.
Right. Yeah, it's like you said, with engaging and sharing, there's an art to it, and it seems like there's also an art to reaching out to people and messaging on these platforms. And that's something that I'm personally working on, because I just started this podcast and I want to get as many insightful people who are passionate about what they do
Yeah.
on the show. And I think that is going to be a great way. It's something that I'm going to start doing more of. I know you mentioned, it has to be genuine. Are there any specific things like, you know, do you want to hop on a phone call that you think work better than others, or is it mainly just, hey, I'm a fan of your content, love what you do, who this is who I am?
So a lot of times, I'll do a very similar message to what I sent you, right? Like, hey,
Right.
love your Medium stuff. Always look forward to seeing it. Glad that we connected here on Twitter.
Hmm.
Now, you know. Smart people kind of do what you did, right? They ask some questions, go back, because if I get a message similar to that, I'll start asking some questions like, oh, how long have you been on Twitter? What do you think so far? What kind of things are you doing, working on? As I mentioned, I'm a little bit of an introvert, so I'm probably not going to ask people to hop on a phone call or this or that. I'm happy to do it if people ask me.
Hmm.
um, but I do, I think when you start, like, I don't ever want to get a message from somebody and not respond with some questions or kind of like a next step. And most people are like that, when you reach out to them, like, they will ask you some questions like,
Right.
what do you find the most valuable on Twitter?
Hmm.
What are you working on? And that's where you would jump in, this podcast.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Um, okay, so transitioning maybe just to a little bit of the overall genre that you of content that you create, making life and money work for you is kind of the tagline that you have across Medium, Substack, and Twitter.
Mhm.
Can you unpack that idea a little bit for us, and maybe how, obviously, your story of how you got to that idea?
Yeah, so it came. It's basically just the things that I'm interested in the sense of personal growth, and wealth building. Right,
Mm,
like, I view money as a tool. I
hmm.
don't chase money for money's sake. It has, something I want it to do. Uh, Even then, like with life, like I was thinking, there's so much that's like outside of our control except ourselves, right? Like, we can
Hmm.
practice self mastery. No, we're probably never going to master ourselves and become the
Right.
perfect version. uh, but I think that's kind of the fun part, right? Like, the personal growth journey never ends.
Yeah,
And so I always think
absolutely.
back, it's sort of like this. When I was 25 and I was first starting, I called it building the foundation followed by the money.
Mm,
And then, like, for the foundation, I thought of it in terms of growth plus gratitude. And it was like, I want to keep growing as a person, but I also want to be very, appreciative of all the things that I have, good health,
mm,
all this kind of stuff. Um, so that's really where it was, is like, I built this foundation. That was the personal growth part. I never got tired of that. Like, I still work on it. And then it was the money. I want to get a financial education. I want to learn how to invest. And I'm what I call like a lazy investor. I want to put my money into things and then I don't want to think a ton about it.
right.
And so that's why you see me like turning the landlord stuff over to my brother. And like,
Hmm.
it was getting the financial education to like know what to do and then just leave it alone. Like, now I don't
Mm,
want to worry about that money. It's just doing its thing. I add to it and leave it alone. Um, so that's kind of where I was at. And then I'll touch briefly on sort of where I've ended up from that growth plus gratitude,
yeah,
to
please.
today. I live by what I call, the trifecta of living well, and
Mm,
it's health, relationships, and wealth. And I always put health and relationships first because it comes back to like, money for money's sake does me no good. Like,
mm,
if I'm in poor health, if I have crappy relationships, life still stinks. Like, you'll be rich, it doesn't matter.
right.
Um, so it always comes back to like, I've actually stopped goal setting. And what I do now is what I call day building. And I think of like, what's like the most perfect day that I could have.
Mm,
And I try to build it and then I do it the next day and the next day. And all the habits come back to the trifecta, the health, the relationships. And everyone has to build their own version of a perfect day, right? Yours and mine won't look the same. And uh, but like for me, I had these specific habits that I wanted to hit. Like, I wanted to meditate for at least 5 minutes a day. I want to do my workout. I want to get up at a certain time and do like my deep work and get it out of the way. I want to have dinner with my family. So there were all these things that I kind of laid out, and then I keep a little spreadsheet I call my habit tracker.
hmm.
And I jot them down. Like, did I hit my things today?
Hmm.
And I'll be like, at the end of the day, yeah, you build a great day. Now we'll do it again
Hmm.
tomorrow. And we stack those days, and then it becomes, you've surpassed any goal that you would have set, right? Because now you've done
Right.
all the things you were supposed to, and it's like, wow, like, did I know to say, hey, I want 12,000 followers by a certain? No, I never did that, but I did my engagements, I did my, you know threads, whatever, and here you end up.
Hmm. Yeah, I thank you for sharing that. That I think that's an incredible. The growth plus gratitude is a uh, key to growing and personally and in health, relationships, and wealth, like you said. Unpacking the idea about day building a little bit more, I'm
Mhm.
curious about, when you first came across that idea, the timeline that you were thinking. Were you saying, this is a day in the future that I can see myself doing, that I want to help, like I want to cultivate that day? Or was it just, looking towards tomorrow? This is what I want to do. This is the day I'm creating. Is that more of a daily process or like a kind of visionary process down the road?
So for me, it's more visionary. Like it came to what do I want things to look like, when I'm 65 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and what are the things that I can do today to kind of build toward that. Um, and that's what I was saying, like creating all like these best habits I could think of, right? And I'm like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
never going to regret meditating. I'm never going to regret working out. I'm never going to regret eating dinner with my family. And so I came down to all these like really like core things again, build around those, the trifecta. And
Right.
um and I said like these are habits I'll never regret doing, and they
Mm-hmm.
will build me into the type of person and the type of life that I want to look back on and be like, yeah,
Yeah.
that was well lived.
Yeah, I love that thought because one of the things that I talk about a lot with in health and performance is, you know, I want to identify your desirable health and performance outcome. And I
Mhm.
want you to get really clear with what that looks like because your version of ideal health, ideal performance on in sport or whatever is very different than anyone else's. And I can't, as a coach, I can't tailor my treatment, my intervention, my protocol that I'm giving you unless I also understand what that looks like. And it's almost like starting with the end in mind and getting really familiar. Ramit said he talks about like your rich
Mhm.
life, and I think that it's kind of a similar concept in the sense that you want to get familiar with what your ideal day looks like and then just do
Yeah.
it nonstop.
Yes. And I just think you can't really fail when you do that. And it's much
Right.
easier, it's a lot less stressful on you to say, just build tomorrow. Like, don't worry
Hmm.
about next week or next month. We're just worried
Yeah.
about tomorrow.
Yeah, I that and that ties into, like you said, the process of everything and being consistent. And um, do you think the do you derive value? You obviously derive value and meaning from that process.
Mhm.
Do you
So,
go for it? Expand on that.
I'm sorry. Did you have more
And
to the question?
I was just gonna ask, like, do you have any suggestions for people who are very outcome, or maybe not outcome isn't the right word, but like fixated on specific numbers of getting $10,000 on Medium versus the process? And do you have any suggestions for people looking to, kind of fix the outcome and then focus on the process?
So I do, I would call it outcome focused versus process focused, right? And
Hmm.
so I think we all can tend to default to outcome focused. I think it's just
Hmm.
sort of like human default. So I always think to myself though, and one of the reasons I moved into process oriented day building is because like when you think back, all the outcomes you ever got to, you never felt quite as satisfied as you think you should have, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because you were like attached, or if you fell short, you felt bad about yourself. But if you went over, you still didn't feel like as good as you should have.
Hmm.
And you know, like I take for example, I was so excited to hit 500,000 in net worth, and then I
Hmm.
got there, and it was like, this is what it feel like. It just
Like,
doesn't feel as good as I thought it would feel,
right.
right? And
Yeah.
I'm thankful for it, but hitting the goal didn't feel that great. But it's funny because when I turn my focus like to building the days, I find I'm enjoying the whole day. Like as I hit those little mini goals, like, oop, did my workout, oop, did my meditation, oop, had dinner,
Hmm.
I feel good all day. I end the
Hmm.
day and I'm like satisfied,
Hmm.
did what I was supposed to do. But it's like, yeah, when you look for those big goals, you get there and you're just like, womp womp, what's next? Day
Yeah.
building, you never run into that. What's next is tomorrow. We're doing the same
Right.
thing.
Right. Well, the day building is I think it's such a good framework for, thinking about it because like you said, it's you're thinking about what you're doing today and then tomorrow, and that's it.
Mhm.
And you want to create, the best day that you can have, obviously. Like whatever that day means to you. You want to cultivate the heck out of it and make it
Yeah.
one worth living in, right? Um,
Yeah, it's just like it's that excitement of like you're constantly hitting your little goals. I guess we call it,
mm,
your little dopamine
hmm
hits are occurring all the time, but and there's no letdown because you were like, I had a great day.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I wanted.
absolutely. Yeah. Um, I have a few more questions
Sure.
as we're nearing the end of our time. I want to make sure that I let you go and you get time to go to your next client. But I have a question about a Medium article that you posted. It's actually pinned. It says or actually, it might be a tweet. 14 of the best online businesses you can start now.
Mhm.
Um, and I believe it was a Medium article actually, and you wrote about 14 different online businesses. As someone who is new to the online business game, I'm asking a little bit selfishly, but there are plenty of people out there like me. Do you have
Mhm.
any suggestions for, someone starting an online business outside of the, be consistent with it?
Um, I mean, obviously, consistency. I feel like that's the core of everything.
Right.
Aside from that, you know, building an online business, I do not want to act like an expert. I don't know. Everybody's online business is specific to them, right? Depending on
Right.
what field you're going into. Um, I mean, my best piece of advice is to find a mentor within the
Mm,
particular business that you want. Like, if you want to go into coaching and stuff, find other coaches and not necessarily just fitness ones. Um,
mm-hmm,
so, you can go broad with it, but I mean, that would be the first thing I was doing. Like when I was building sales stuff, it was like I went and found the best sales reps at the company and asked them for some of their time. Once I had
mm,
some of their time, they sort of felt invested in me, right? So then they're checking in, or if I had a question, I could go to them. And you hear these, it's like having a podcast, once a week with the top sales reps, people who are closing $1 million deals, and it's like, well, you're who I want to learn from. Uh,
mm-hmm,
so, I mean, that'd be the first thing. If I was building an online business from scratch, I would try to find people within my space and create a connection, a relationship, you know, ask them for a little bit of their time. Most people are pretty willing to help. The thing there, though, is to remember, you only want to maybe go up like a couple of levels.
mm-hmm.
I'm not going to call Elon Musk and, or,
Right.
try to DM Elon Musk and ask him for advice. You want to go a couple levels above where you're at and
Right.
ask, what did you do to get here? How did you
Mm-hmm,
turn a $0 business into 100,000? And then when you get to 100,000, maybe you find someone who's doing 500,000. How'd you turn it
mm-hmm.
from 100 to 500? So that's what I would do. I would find those mentors in the increments.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great piece of advice and something that I'm trying to do right now. So I thank you for being on the show. Kind of closing question here. Anything you are looking forward to
I mean,
in
I am
life? Anything?
like, I mean, I honestly, I really do look forward to all my days. I'm at a point where it's funny, like everybody says, like, how do I want to end up living? And I kept asking that question too. And then I realized, like, I'm kind of already doing it.
Hmm.
I have a lot of control over my own time. I talk to a lot of interesting people.
Hmm.
Um, I have the money that I need. I'm always learning more things. And I'm like, I'm already sort of living it. And so that's been like a big thing too that I've been kind of talking to some of my friends and stuff about is like you have to find like the life that you have in your head of the way you want to live. Find ways to do that right now.
Mm,
Or find ways that you're already doing that. Like, for example, my girlfriend, she moved to a 4-day work week. And then she was like, oh, I could go back 5 days and make more money. And I'm like, but we don't need it. And this is like the goal is to work less.
right,
I said,
right.
so, you got to find like your little ways that you're already living the good life
Hmm.
and kind of like lean into that. And, you know, so I don't, anything major. Yeah, I'm going on vacation in June, but
Yay.
that I enjoy my days. I'm excited to get up in the morning and get started.
I love it. Where are you going in June?
We're just going down to Ocean View, Delaware. Nowhere super
Nice.
fancy, but 10
Yeah.
days of just disconnecting. Well, I probably won't fully disconnect, but you know.
Yeah, right. I'm heading I'm heading abroad actually. I'm going to be traveling to the East Coast. I'm going to go to New York City. I've never been.
All right.
Um I've been to the state of New York, but not the city. And so I'm going to spend a few days there and then take this show to Europe actually, and I'm going to travel around Europe and do some
That's
traveling
nice.
while over there. And my plan is to keep doing exactly what we're doing here. So, thank you so much, Cait. I really enjoyed taking this hour with you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Noah. I appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Yes. And for all the real quick, for all the people listening, where can we find you?
I am on Twitter and Medium under Cait Mack. You know, punch it into Google or wherever. I'm there. Come say
Sweet.
hi.
All right. Thank you, Cait.